So, thank you for attending our publishing webinar. This is Steve O'Dart. I'm the CEO of Ixus. Ixus is a consultancy and systems integration organisation. We operate globally out of our offices both in Europe and across the US. As a company, we work predominantly with the publishing and media sector, tackling the very common challenge of how do you move from a print or product-based production workflow to something that is going to allow you to be far more flexible and device agnostic in a digital world. That is the subject that we're going to be looking at over the next half an hour. And because of our background in having tackled this challenge many times, one of the key areas of solution are the idea of creating a platform that can support your complete content lifecycle, everything from the creation of that content through the work in progress associated with reviewing, approving, getting staff to work collaboratively, maybe even on a global basis, and then being able to ensure that that content is both consistent and very readily discoverable from any of your staff in any of your offices in any geography, and ultimately allowing them to be able to put together new products, new initiatives that they can determine to be on whatever format of their choice in whatever geography. Just to give some credibility to our thoughts around this whole subject area, thought it might be worth highlighting the kind of organisations that Ixus have been and are currently working with around the world. And so today I'm delighted to be able to introduce you to two of our senior team who work very closely with our publishing clients and have been at the coalface of solving these challenges in a commercial world on behalf of our client organisations. And both Carl and Paul are going to be taking you through both a view on some of those common challenges and also looking at the kind of solutions that these other large publishers have adopted when they've approached this issue of identifying the challenge and defining the solution. And Carl and Paul will be taking you through that. So I'm now going to hand over to Carl.
Thank you, Steve. So today we're going to be looking at driving revenues. And for me, in my experience of working for some of the publishers that I've worked for, this often comes with three key areas and three issues that we need to deal with. These are new product development. Here we're talking about how we respond to new situations that arise in our markets, looking for new formats to publish in or for, and this is helping or making us have new ways of thinking. We look for new revenues from our old content, our existing content, and constantly trying to find out how to maximize our backlist by repurposing and maximizing our return on investment, but also perhaps looking for indirect revenue gains from cost savings. This is a challenge we all face, I think. And new ways of working. Constantly in this digital age, we're being faced with the desire for more content more quickly. And so speed to market is becoming a critical issue for us all. And this leads us down that pathway of creating once and being able to publish anywhere, which would help us immensely, and we get lots of efficiency gains. But rather than go through my list of things mechanically, I would rather tell you a story about a time at one of the publishers I worked for. So let me outline the situation that I was facing at the time. Ministers of Education in two of our major markets in the EMEA region had decided to, in inverted commas, go digital. They decided to make education and institutions in their regions go either purely digital or largely digital by the use of tablet computers or laptops. And this was, to a degree for us, unexpected and led to an urgent, very urgent need to reinvent our print list of 50 plus fairly highly designed, fairly bespoke titles. If we didn't do this, the risk to the business was in the region of £250,000 of print revenues. And effectively, in one market, we were having to replace our print revenue with a completely digital version of that content. In another market, we were supplementing our print revenues with digital revenues, and so we were facing, if we didn't do this, losses in potential gains from digital versions of our content. We had a limited window of opportunity to get this done. I think it was around about 9 months for the key market, the driving market, and we had to convert these 50 plus highly designed titles to a device agnostic format. Device agnostic, of course, meaning that we needed to make each version of our content available for use on an iPad or an Android tablet with this version or that version or another version of the software, for a MacBook, for a Linux computer, for a Windows computer. So we had to be trying to develop content for multiple devices at the same time as delivering it in a very short window. And then one of our other goals was to make sure that this process that we were going to go through was going to be scalable, would allow us to apply it to other markets. So we also felt that we needed to stay apace with our customers and develop the content and the way of using the content as they grew in their understanding of how to use it. So we couldn't afford to be in a position where we went out of date very quickly, and we needed to create the opportunity to partner with our customers so that we were developing products with them. So this is what we were going to do. These are the tasks we set ourselves. We're going to convert our existing print titles to EPUB 3, HTML5, create a whole bunch of interactive exercises that we could put into this content that would support the learning, and then combine these interactives and the print content, in inverted commas, with the audio that went alongside these books that we were converting. And that would create a rich learning experience, and then deliver it on tablets or serve it up in a way that institutional buyers could deliver it to their end users. Our particular business model was B2B2C, which is quite complex, a degree of complexity that we were also trying to build for, so that at a later stage we would be able to sell in that model. In year one, this is going to be a manual sale, but we needed to have our eye on the future the whole time. So the first set of issues that we faced in dealing with this situation was the complexity in collaborating across the business. First set of issues that we faced when dealing with this challenge was collaborating across the business. So the complexity there was that we had multiple owners. They were publishing managers, publishers, list owners, editors, salespeople, lots of people who felt that these products that we were creating were theirs and therefore theirs to approve. And quite right too, they needed to have sight of the materials, they needed to be able to pass comment on them. The problem we had as a project team was that when they were passing comments, sometimes these would contradict each other. So it would be a comment about the way something was being delivered or the way it was designed. And we had to manage these multiple inputs as we were going through the process. And that was quite difficult when working with that large number of people. We also needed, as a project team, because it was such a complex project, to record our decisions and make sure there was a great clarity on the way forward and the agreed ways forward, because working on a project across so many different boundaries, inevitably we weren't going to please everybody internally. So we need to make sure that there was clear agreement. And that complexity across the boundaries stretched not just to our internal boundaries, but also to the third parties we were using who were helping to develop the content. And geographies, as I mentioned before, this was dealing with the situation in the EMEA region. And so we were talking about salespeople in different time zones having to be able to get access to our content and approve it or comment on it, or just wanting to know what state it was in and what stage it was at. And we needed to make this collaboration across boundaries possible because we were doing it at such high speed. And that's my last bullet point here. The speed at which we were working complicated the process. And it made it difficult to keep track of where things were and we needed to keep track of, I'm using an old term here, of manuscripts. They weren't really manuscripts in the way that we think of them, but we needed to track the status of a manuscript of a particular title that was going through the process. And it was important for us to be able to know where something was for all of the reasons I've just mentioned, so that we had clear sign-off points and that the people in the market knew where things were. So collaborating was particularly complex. And I'm going to hand over to Paul now, who will talk you through a few ways in which would assist this process, and these are things I really wish I'd had back then.
Thank you, Cole. My job or my role here is to show you around what we've pulled together for this demonstration and for the publishing clients that we have. It's built on Alfresco Enterprise Content Management System and includes a number of modules or components that we have developed to enhance Alfresco and to make it applicable to publishers in particular. First, we'll run through some of the more out-of-the-box functionality of Alfresco and how we use that in our publishing clients, and then more towards the end, some of the enhancements that we put on there. So what you will see to begin with is a dashboard, and this dashboard is for myself. It's my personal dashboard, and you'll see a number of dashlets on here, these rectangles, showing me content that I have access to within collaborative areas called sites. This consolidated or aggregated view of this content is showing me, for instance, here on the left, the calendar from a site called the demonstration site, or the activities that I have going on throughout this platform. Likewise, the sites that I'm a member of, and even workflow tasks that have been assigned to me. If I jump down into a demonstration site now, this is a collaborative area where multiple people have different roles where they can collaborate on content, whether that's, as you can see here, XML content, or Word documents, or PDF, or images, or even rich media content like videos. Just to walk you through some of these pieces of functionality along the top, as Carl mentioned, there's a number of different roles that people play in this collaborative process. Maybe some people are administrators on the content, or collaborators, or even just kind of read-only players in this process. We have the ability to store and search and tag internal or external hyperlinks, to manage lists of information, maybe commissioning products or even a list of product items. Discussion forums, wikis, calendars, some of which you saw through on my dashboard. And here in the document library is where we store the assets that we're going to be using for our cooking book or cooking product. Just to give you a flavour of what an asset looks like when we click on it. This is a Word document. You'll see that there's a preview of this document. I haven't had to download anything to see this. That's very handy for approving within a workflow. No need to download this content. And around that you'll see the decoration around this asset. So the metadata down the right here, including metadata that's being enforced around publishers and rights, and the actions that I'm able to take on this asset itself. So as an administrator, I'm able to do obviously all of these, but these can be permissioned out or down. So that's from downloading to online and offline editing of content, moving around, workflows, which we'll come back to, and also down the bottom here you'll see a version history, so that there is one version of the truth, but also a historical record of the changes that have been made to this asset. We see comments as well. Carl mentioned the need to move comments around with assets. Just to take this a step further and look at some of the more rich media content here, I've created another site and simply called it an image library, and stored in this image assets rather than more textual based content. You'll see that the dashboard is now slightly differently laid out, and this is just representative of a different style of layout. Some of the assets have geocode information in them, and that enables me to actually just locate information by clicking on a map and taking me through to this asset. And this is now familiar from the Word document you saw. You can see a preview of the asset and the metadata associated with it, and renditions as well, which we'll come back to when we talk about XML. With the commenting function, often we see publishers printing out material to comment on, and we've enabled that to happen within this platform as well, across PDF, InDesign, image as well. In addition to that, we can do that on video content, some of the rich media assets. So here you'll see a video which we're able to play in the browser. We have video frames available here so we can see the context of the video without playing it. But also comments here with annotations. So if I view this particular annotation, it will open the video in the annotation view. It will take me directly to the frame where the comment has been made, this arrow showing what needs to happen, and the comments against the username as well. So the ability to workflow these items, to mark it up, and also to collaborate real time here on the left on static or more rich media. At which point I'll hand back to Carl. Thank you very much.
So thanks, Paul. So I'm sure you'll agree with me, those are some great ways of working across projects and keeping control of your content. I do wish I'd had those things back then. So back to my story. The situation, if you remember, was that we had to deliver all of these titles, these 50 plus titles, out to a region in a short window and make them device agnostic. And one of the issues we faced here was the degree to which internally we were insisting that we maintained a faithfulness to the page, to the printed page which these books came from, which this content came from. And maintaining this page integrity presented us with a number of challenges. There were issues to do with fonts and how they can be distributed electronically. And we had issues with fixed layouts, the fact that these were very bespoke pages. It was very difficult to mirror the original print layout in a digital form. And some of the issues we were facing there were inflexibility about thought, about how you could take content and rethink it for these new devices. And that's something we learned along the way. Some of these things also were partly the ways we were working. We were working with multiple stakeholders, as I mentioned before, and quite often we were having to correct things that had been corrected before because we didn't know where they were in the process. And sometimes because we were producing for different screens and different devices, we were ending up with lots and lots of what seemed to be versions of the same content, and it was very unclear which version we were working on and whether the corrections we had made had passed through to all of the versions that we were trying to deliver to market. So we were getting errors creeping in, and I was getting nervous because time was running out. We had a lack of faith that what we were working on was the true original source of content. And this is just compounded, as I mentioned before, by the ways we were working and by the number of people and the speed we were working at. But it was also, as I touched on before, compounded by the multiple devices we were going for. Necessarily, because we had no way of dealing with it, we had to create versions for Android of a screen size 7-inch, an Android tablet of a screen size that was 10 inches, an Android tablet that was a screen size of X and Y and Z, and we had to do a version of an iPad that didn't have any flash in it, and so on and so on. So we were faced with these challenges where we were forced to create multiple renditions, multiple versions of our content. One of the choices we made was to go down an XML route. And XML is a way of presenting content with no design information embedded in it, but it is marked up so that it can be pushed through to different outputs and then designed appropriately for the delivery mechanism. So that's what we were trying to do with our conversion process, was convert to XML and then mark it up later in the process for delivery. And that was the right decision, but we had difficulty in working on it. And I'm going to hand back over to Paul now, who will show you some ways in which the tools that we work with here can help with working with XML and to deliver a single source of truth.
Thank you again, Carl. And just follow on from obviously the demonstration that you saw earlier. What we'll do now is go through the use of XML and the ways that we can edit that in context or with other familiar tools to realize new pieces of products, new product types from a single source. So on your screen now you'll see a familiar alfresco document library view, and you'll see that I have some XML here. And this XML content is just stored in the same repository as all the other items are, perhaps in a hierarchy like I have there. And you'll see here a representation, a preview of that XML content, in this case double mocha layer cake recipe with metadata associated with it, but also a number of renditions on the right. And these renditions are representations of the XML in a style. So in this case we have a PDF document which I can click on and is being generated on the fly against that XML that is being edited. So this layout would be predefined by you perhaps, and but able to be used very quickly in an approval process without the need to go through a layout step or a more manual layout step. Likewise, we have HTML representation here. Yes, another representation of that very same content being pulled from the single source XML. If I can just swap across onto a PC just to show that we are cross-platform, I'll go through to this same asset again, this double mocha layer cake, and begin to edit that within the browser environment. So within context we have our XML, we can show our preview representation of that, and on our actions list, the things we can do to this content a bit further down, we can edit this inline. That opens up within the browser an XML editor, which we can then affect the content in the repository. So perhaps the number of servings was wrong, and perhaps we can change some of the text. Obviously, more changes would be affected than this. We can save that back, and because Alfresco is looking after this content, we'll get a new version of this. If I scroll down to that, you can see that we have a version history here. It was changed just now, and that, indeed there's quite a long history of changes to this XML document. As we've done that, we've changed the servings there. Our PDF has been regenerated, and we have our different servings here, and they're changing in the intro text. So that could immediately be available for approval process to be used in some way. In addition to that, we'd like to enable our publishers to obviously benefit from the investment they already have in existing tools. So perhaps the authors are writing in Word, so being able to import Word into Alfresco and convert that into more pure XML, but also for the designers to be able to work within InDesign, but on content that is in Alfresco. So I have open here a template file that's actually stored within Alfresco. You can see the images are linked back into the Alfresco repository here. And I can open up now, I'm importing the XML that we've just been editing within Alfresco. So here is our XML content, and that will be imported into our template and laid out within InDesign. Because this content is being managed by Alfresco, we're able to actually edit the XML from within InDesign through some of the enhancements that we've done to InDesign itself. You can see a custom menu up here as well. And that means that a designer themselves may spot a small error that they want to change. Maybe this word shouldn't be here, and actually it was 16 servings, not 15. And these changes can then be saved back into Alfresco and allow it to affect the XML that everyone is drawing upon. So saving this file back into Alfresco, you can see the structure of Alfresco here next to the InDesign template in this case. We can save that back in, and obviously because Alfresco is looking after this content, we will have the ability to manage it as it comes back in, to extract the XML from InDesign, and also to have version comments available to the asset as it is saved. So these comments will go back against the asset within Alfresco. So now that's finished, I'll head back to my Mac and look in at the folder where we save things. Now I have now the XML InDesign template plus a print-ready PDF that's been generated with full preview, obviously, with our changes to the product. Plus an InDesign file. Again, I have a preview available for that as well, which could be annotated, which could be sent around for a workflow process. But also the original XML that we were working on, that others may have been working on as well, has been updated. The preview has been updated as well. So from this point, I've been able to produce print-ready PDFs, InDesign files. As well as that, we can automate the process of laying out HTML5 as well. So this is a representation of that InDesign file as HTML5. I'm able to push this through yet another workflow process, but reliant on the same XML content. Again, this may be used for your iPad version or some other device. Another output might be your website. So in order to show you a bit about workflow, I'm going to submit this XML, in this case, to be published, to be used on an external website. But to get there, it needs to go through an approval process. So I have a different user here, in this case a publisher, who has the ability or the rights to approve content to be published through to a website. So this workflow task itself shows me who I am, when things are due, what the asset is, but also allows me to leave a comment about the asset. It's fine, needs changing, it could go through another revision. This looks great, please feel free to use, and then I'll approve that. In the process of approving that, there's been a number of processes kicked off behind the scenes where we use this XML to serve this website, and you'll see this is a kind of consumer-facing website. If I refresh now this page, you'll see the latest recipe is this double mocha layer cake with our different servings and the different intro text. And as a consumer, maybe I would like to select this for my myself to be used, but likewise I might be able to search for other ingredients that I want to consume and reorder in my own publication, if we can call it that. So I could reorder my content, perhaps putting our new one at the end and then giving it a name. Let's call it demonstration here. So we're able to view this content in lots of different ways. Maybe this is our tablet version, another tablet version of this content, with the ability to show another layout, again reliant on this XML, or even to generate and download a PDF on the fly, on demand, which a user can use on any device that they like. Again, reliant on that single source of the truth. And perhaps I'll hand back now to Carl.
So thank you again, Paul, and I'm sure you'll agree with me once more. There's a really great tools that you can use, and I really wish I had had that single source of truth that enabled me to deliver these things fast. And the result for me was, well, I felt that we'd failed, which is possibly a strong word, and we certainly had some considerable difficulties collaborating. We had difficulty with conversion, we had error checking issues and content checking issues. But we didn't achieve the goals that I thought we'd set out to do. What we did do was met the market need. We barely met it by delivering mildly interactive PDFs. So we'd taken literally a facsimile of the page and we'd overlaid it with hyperlinks which took the user out to a web page where the audio was served up or where the interactive exercises were served up. So that helped us helped protect the share that we had, but it was a very clunky way of doing things, and there was no way that we'd met our other goals of being able to repurpose this process and indeed this content for other markets and other needs. And we certainly couldn't scale this to make it workable for other markets as they were gradually going more and more digital in their education systems. So what learning did we get? My bullet points on the right hand side of your screen at the moment. Absolutely go for XML, whether it's in Word. I think Paul mentioned just now that you can continue to use the tools that you're familiar with, and Word is one that our authors use an awful lot. And because it's built on XML, that puts you in a very good position to convert it to a very clean version of XML, which you can then push through these tools and deliver in a much tighter time frame, really good product at the other end. So I would urge us all to go XML first. I would also urge, from my experience, that you look at your backlist and decide which are the priority titles, which are the titles that are worth maximising, worth creating new products from, and plan for reuse. So even if you don't have a pressing need right now, don't wait for the emergency to happen, but start to convert some of these titles into XML and get them ready for creating new products and for meeting new opportunities. And that equally applies to the front list. I would urge everybody, from my experience, to make the front list digital first. So make it XML right from the get-go, or at least, if not right from the start, then very early in the process. Don't wait until you get to your print-ready PDF before you start thinking about converting and making it available in other formats. And that goes back to that whole idea of having a single source of truth, a single source of content which is worked upon by the tools that you've seen today. And that really will enable that combination of XML and the kinds of tools that we do here at Ixus will enable you to create once and I hope publish everywhere and be ready for the next format and the next format that comes out. We didn't do this in my story, and I really wish we had those tools. And I would urge you to have a look at them more deeply after the webinar. Some final thoughts, though, around cultural shift, other pieces of learning. One of the key pieces here is, as I've touched on earlier on, there was a degree of inflexibility about what this content should look like at the other end of the process. And that was really, people were focusing on the fact that it started off as a page and needed to look like a page at the other end. And I think, if anything I've learned through this process is to stop looking at our content and defining it by the way that it is delivered. Our content is really good content, and it can be served up on a web page, or on an iPad, or on a tablet, or on a laptop, or in print. And we should stop thinking about it as a book, I suppose, in one sense, and just see the page as a delivery mechanism. And that allows us to rethink and reimagine our content to suit the different needs that are arising in our marketplaces. On the other side of it, as we think about our content differently, we can also start to use those tools that we've seen today and the delivery mechanisms to gather data and apply that data about how our consumers are consuming our content. And this will help us in deciding new products for the future, such as mashups, where we're taking different bits of content from different lists and creating perhaps more personalised usage of it, not dissimilar from the cookbook that you saw earlier on in the demonstration. So at the end of this whole process that I went through, I think I did come out with one very clear thing, that we do need to manipulate that old phrase about thinking outside the box. We need to start thinking outside the books and to start thinking of new ways of delivering content and to stop limiting our thinking in that sense. So change in internal culture in our publishers is critical, but I think that change is supported by the kinds of technologies that you've seen today, and the ability to interact with our content when it's converted into XML or delivered in XML allows us to be much more creative about what we're delivering to our consumers and our customers. This means we really can drive revenues because we can create the kinds of products that our customers really want to see, and we can do it very quickly. So as new situations arise, we're in a position to deliver and react to those situations robustly and in a cost-efficient way. So thank you for your time and thank you for listening.